You're about to hear Hotty Toddy. Like, all of the crowd's still on the field. So you're about to hear Hotty Toddy.
You know what that's called, Andy?
A party that they've never lost?
It's called return on investment. That's what that's called.
That's exactly what it. Okay. So after Ole Miss lost to Georgia last year, Lane Kiffin, he said this. They said they got to go out and get players that are as physical in the trenches as Georgia's. Ari, they whipped Georgia's ass in the trenches today.
Yeah, no, it was like an entire. This wasn't a fluke, cute upset. This isn't, we're storming the field because we beat somebody we're not supposed to beat. Like, Ole Miss throughout 4 quarters of this football game looked like the better team.
If not for that Jackson Dart interception that led to an easy touchdown in the first quarter, this game's not even close.
Yeah, no, it showed up with a lot of the players that they brought in during the offseason, right? Like, who was the person who caught the touchdown that extended the lead to 12 there in the third quarter? Who was the person who fell on the fumble? That was Juice Wells, by the way. Walter Nolan recovered the fumble.
Who ran the arc around the left tackle to sack Carson Beck, Prince Lou Manuel?
Yeah, so, that's the thing. Like, last year, Georgia and Ole Miss played, and Ole Miss was an 8-1 team. They went to Athens to try to figure out how far of a gap there was. They lost by 35 points.
The gap was massive, yeah.
So they go out. They return a bunch of the players. In the old days, what do you do with those players? You hope that they develop in the offseason. You want to recruit better, but you can't fix that issue in 2018 in 1 year. Ole Miss got out the checkbook. They went out and got players that weren't just good, but really important pieces that show up in games like this. Now, they didn't create this roster to lose to Kentucky. They didn't create this roster to lose to LSU. But where are they right now as we walk off this field? They're in college football playoff projections.
Yep.
They're back in the national championship discussion, and they didn't take the route that they thought they would, beating Kentucky, maybe losing this game, but playing close. But they arrived in the same destination, which is like with a roster that's good enough to win a playoff game or 2 or 3 heading into the mid-November. Think about the difference in vibe between where Lane Kiffin was in Athens a year ago, 368 days ago to this moment, to where they are right now.
Yeah, this is a top 5 roster. Whether it can actually get to the college, because it's got to win out. Like, Ole Miss has to win out, and we've seen results just today.
Yeah.
That would say, oh, well, a surprise can happen. But if they can win out, if they can make the college football playoff, they can win games in the college football playoff with this roster. Anybody they see, they'll be capable of beating if they play a game like they played today.
You know what I think it is, too? It's like I'm in this environment right now. We watch the goalposts come down.
Yeah.
I followed Deuce Knight onto the field, recorded that. Usually when you see stuff like that, when you see a field storming, it's just a celebration of a great night.
Yeah.
But to me, this felt like a celebration of the turning point of the program. Now, I don't know if they're going to go out and win a national championship, but Andy, I can look at you right now and say they have the players to do it, and you couldn't say that a year ago.
No, you couldn't say that.
Yeah.
And the thing about this game that I think is really interesting, because this happened in the first quarter, and I think people have probably forgotten it by now, and you've moved on. You're watching the Alabama-LSU game out of the corner of your eye. Austin Simmons came in and gave them a touchdown drive.
Awesome.
They've got another quarterback. If something were to happen to Jackson Dart, God forbid, they have another quarterback.
It was like one of the most complete drives of the year.
Yes.
And here's what was striking to me. Now, listen, we can't sit here in this video and pretend like it was only Ole Miss who ascended.
Correct.
Georgia has also come down, but I think that's also part of the opportunity when you make that investment. You say, hey, we have all these players coming back. Not a lot of teams have this much player coming back. And we have a manageable schedule, and the teams that are supposed to be the monsters of the sport are not as deep and talented as they've been in the past. Right. So I don't think that this Ole Miss team, maybe I'm wrong, but they wouldn't be equipped to beat 2020 Alabama. But 2020 Alabama doesn't exist this year.
It doesn't exist anymore. Right, because Georgia lost this game just as much because it didn't have those special playmakers on offense.
Right.
I remember just watching from the end zone as Georgia is trying to run its offense, and you're like, who scares you? Who could get the ball that could touch the ball and score? Where if you're a defensive coordinator, if you're Pete Golding, if you're that guy,
if you're this guy,
he kind of looks like Pete Golding.
Yeah. Hey, tell him how you really feel. You got him.
Well, this isn't Alabama, Tennessee.
It's better than Alabama, Tennessee.
Really? Wow.
It is better.
All right, so what was I? Oh, nobody that scares your defensive coordinator. Like if he touches the ball like Brock Bowers last year, like Ladd McConkey last year, he could go.
We've been saying this since the beginning of the year, too, and I felt nuts saying it. But, like, the reason why – also, too, we also talk about how open Ole Miss's receivers were the entire game.
Yeah.
Like, they weren't just open. They were wide open, and Trey Harris wasn't even playing.
He wasn't playing. And I think they had to adjust their offense when they lost Trey Harris. I think they'd gotten comfortable thinking we can throw deep to Trey Harris whenever we want to, and then they got a little over-reliant on that. Now they've had to diversify it. You saw
the
Jordan
receivers
Watkins.
are good.
Absolutely. They're spreading it around. Juice Wells had a good game.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. But also, Georgia couldn't run the ball.
No.
Like, that was not shocking because we've watched Ole Miss's defense play all year. We've watched Georgia's offense play all year. But they really were limited.
Yeah. So, I don't know what this means, but, to wrap this video, Andy, I think we have to acknowledge that the SEC is creating a lot of teams that have cases for the playoff.
Yes.
And, like, how many are there now? 5?
Well, should we count?
Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, and LSU at the moment, so just count that as one.
Yep. Texas,
Georgia. That's 5.
Yep.
So
and they ain't all going to make it.
But I mean, it's bad news for the ACC and the Big 12 because those are teams that we're hoping to maybe get 2 in, and it's seeming less and less likely. If Ole Miss wins out, I don't know what the math is. I have to calculate that on the SEC championship, but I think they're still technically alive in the SEC race, and also are firmly in the field at the moment.
Yes.
So, and who knows? They could have a playoff game here in a month.
It's true. I mean, that's the thing. If they win out, their best win's against Georgia now, so they have a very good win. They need Georgia to beat Tennessee. That would probably help them a little bit, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because if Georgia's the 3-loss team, it's not as good of a win.
Well, Tennessee's the one crapping their pants right now. I've got news for you. Because Tennessee doesn't want to lose to Georgia and be on the outside looking in. So that game turned into let's play hard and have a good game to a must-win for Tennessee now. So
it's a must-win for Georgia.
It's also that's a playoff game.
Yeah.
So, this is incredible. First time in Oxford, Andy, I was blown away. People were incredible.
They brought it. It's pouring rain now. It was pouring the entire game. Not a person left. You could see empty seats there above the student section toward the end. It's because they were moving down to rush the field.
Yeah. So it feels like this is a team that we're going to be talking about a lot for the next 6 weeks, hopefully for the right reasons. They showed you that you could, make a roster and erase the deficit that they had in a year, which I think is a pretty exciting proposition for a lot of teams. So
for everybody who has a pretty good team that doesn't make the playoff, you're looking at this and going, that could be us next year.
Yeah, right. And there's a lot of them out there that can go out and do it. So good for them. We'll see what happens with Georgia. These are 2 teams that we're going to be talking about quite a bit. Super excited to get warm, watch this LSU-Alabama game with you, and we'll be on our podcast tonight at 10:30.
11:30 Eastern Time, 10:30 where we are. We'll talk to you then.